Chapter 4. Psychotherapy isn't harmful, cognitive behavioral therapy. The organized nature of cognitive behavioral therapy and the apparent end values based on the relationships between minds, emotional state, and behavior make it relatively simple for physicians to use and ensure its standardized distribution. CBT has revolutionized mental health, allowing psychologists to turn the alchemical treatment into a discipline. There's now a significant sign that CBT is as real or complementary as medication for many mental illnesses. It's like any analysis procedure, CBT isn't affected by the risk of unwanted side effects. A new paper in Cognitive Therapy and Investigation plans the nature and occurrence of these undesirable things, based on organized meetings with 200 analysts trained in CBT. It's what psychoanalysts need to know when informing their patients about the future benefits and risks of treatment. The researchers asked each CBT therapist, 78% of whom were female, usually 32 years old, with 5 years of knowledge, to remember their newest client who attended at least 10 sessions of CBT. The selected customers often identified unhappiness, nervousness, and some form of complaint about their character. Psychotherapists regularly reported 4.7 unsolicited events per client. Based on the psychotherapists, which are his descriptions, the investigator then appreciated the likelihood that unwanted individual cases are directly attributable to the healing mode while yielding an actual lateral outcome. Only those considered to be related to the treatment were recognized as such. Most researchers predicted that 4% of clients had experienced at least one undesired side effect of CBT, an average of up to 0.17 per client who often suffers, worsens, and becomes overburdened by family members. More than 40% of the side effects were rated severe and very apparent, and more than a quarter lasted for weeks and months. However, the mainstream was insignificant for fair and volatile. Psychotherapy isn't harmless, the researchers said. There was no warning that any of the assets resulted from a repeat of the principle. Examples of severe side effects included suicidality, fragmentation, family members' unwanted reaction, removal of family members, ghosts of shame and blame, and desperate and expressive problems at meetings. Dark NLP. These disciplines have long been the secret of many. Some of the most devastating insights into the human mind are hidden in the pages of scientific journals. Proven ways to reveal your deepest desires and keep up to date with their pursuit are quickly escalated for you. It's perhaps the best chance to control your life once and for all. Act now before anyone else does. Hypnosis as behavior and cognitive therapy. The goals of this psychological intervention should be, 1. To eliminate any pain, or more often significantly lower. 2. Do this work without accumulation of side effects, namely, an increase in pain level or a decrease in patient activity. 3. Strengthen the impact of other treatments the patient receives. 4. Ensure the patient can use all of this themselves so that they're much more confident and less dependent on his medical and psychological environment. Making the patient active and giving them a sense of control in the care process is a fundamental part of approaches such as hypnosis. We define painful experience as continuity between perception and interpretation of the subject. Pain is both a sensation and an emotional experience, and pain is always subjective. This cerebral culmination of the painful feeling explains the different characteristics of suffering experienced differently by each individual in a strictly personal way. Psychological techniques require a lot of time and effort from both the patient and the doctor. Nevertheless, they're an essential part of pain therapy's arsenal, especially when confronted with these painful conditions that are rebellious for pharmacological treatments. We'll succinctly define what the cognitive approach is and then the behavioral approach under these psychological approaches. The clinical hypnosis in the pain center of the University Hospital of Rouen fits into these two dimensions. Cognitive approaches. Cognitive techniques are concerned with inner speech, internal dialogue, the monologue that accompanies and often precedes action. They're intended to suppress or reduce the patient's anxiety and depression. To approach what they consider to be a dysfunction of thinking, the therapist must somehow enter the world of the patient's representations, adjust what the subject says to themselves, and lead them to stick to more realistic inner words. Asking questions about their pain will be a crucial moment. In essence, the disease's meaning, the uncertainty about its evolution, functional disability, fear of death are all factors that modulate the affective component of pain. However, to give it therapeutic efficacy, it's common to use behavioral methods in which this restructuring of thinking takes place from tasks presented to the subject. The behaviorist approach. With fruitful results and following Pavlov's work and then Skinner's, it forms a coherent system, the cornerstone of which is the concept of reinforcement. A symptom is considered learned, but inappropriate behavior, an effort will, therefore, be made to replace it with a better adapted response. For example, the positive reinforcement factors can be summarized with the following formula: when I suffer and only when I suffer, I receive interest and understanding from others, medical care, rest, attention of loved ones, financial compensation, the care of therapists, all positive reinforcing factors. Reinforcing negative factors can be expressed as follows: when I'm in pain, I avoid difficult situations at work, in a relationship, etc. The conditioned reflex is a cornerstone of behaviorism. The human nervous system learns through repetition, and learning is a design process in people. When a specific event has occurred, mental impressions are formed, which promote recurrence under similar circumstances. Likewise, emotional affairs are conditioned. The stored feelings can be displayed indefinitely throughout life as if they were old recordings. This automatic replay continues until we highlight our events at these events and rearrange our order in the past, erasing the recordings that have become useless. According to Milton H. Erickson, old and persistent pain in any part of the body can lead to all feelings in this area being interpreted as painful. The initial pain may have disappeared a long time ago. Still, the recurring experience of this initial pain leads to the formation of a habit that, in turn, can lead to painful and somatic disorders. The operant conditioning techniques are based on the observation that intricate behavioral patterns can be changed using rewards and punishments. Hypnosis acts on our feelings and sensations, it modifies our cognitive patterns, and provides us with different behaviors to pain. The use of hypnosis in the treatment of pain. The use of hypnosis in medicine is ancient. But let us go back to the 19th century when doctors started to consider the patient's pain and tried to fix it. Their research goes in two directions: a psychological or psychophysical approach, such as animal magnetism, and then hypnosis. At that time, several surgical procedures were performed under anesthesia, such as mental analgesia. At the same time, pharmacological solutions were discovered. The use of nitrous oxide was revealed in the 19th century as anesthesia and ether by Morton and Jackson. Simpson used chloroform to help Queen Victoria during her third and fourth deliveries. Around the same time, Corning devoted a series of works to the epidural. Until recently, the French public and the medical world avoided hypnosis, mainly because of a lack of knowledge stimulated by shows in the music hall and the anathema caused by psychoanalysts. In the Anglo-Saxon world and the countries of the East, hypnosis was taught at universities and used in medicine and psychology. Definition of hypnosis: it's a unique mental state with specific physiological characteristics. It resembles a sleep-like state and is distinguished by the person's action with a different degree of consciousness than the standard condition of knowledge. An increase in susceptibility and sensitivity describes this condition. Our inner perception is just as imaginative as a general rule. Two allegories to delineate the trance-like state: a waking visionary dreamer, he checks his visualization, and an alert sleeper, he seems to have a relaxed sleep, but with an intensely active imagination. At this time, several miracles can happen, suddenly in the subject or suggested by the hypnotherapist, such as a work about memory, remembering, sometimes missing, time twist, narrowing or extending the time. Movement in age, make projections later or later you see yourself, a relapse, returning to the past. Sedation, losing feeling. A presence of pain, the experience of the disappearance of torment, the enchanting act. Therefore, each hypnotic session has two perspectives: the subject's relationship with the trance specialist and the psychophysiological changes they achieve in the issue. The social perception that the hypnotist has complete control is false. A functioning state is enchanting. It's a state where several miracles happen. However, nothing happens without the patient's coordinated effort. The latter will recognize following our proposition to the extent that it allows for itself and with its ethics. Hypnotherapy is a relationship. The subject must believe in the actions of the specialist. The ability to be hypnotized depends on the simplicity with which an individual can absorb an external stimulus and become one with it. Numerous techniques have been used to induce a trance-like state. Their motivation is to establish the treatment of the subject and, in this way, narrow their area of consciousness. Hypnotic work in the treatment of pain. Applications. The applications of this hypnotic capacity are numerous. In obstetrics, we can use hypnotic analgesia in preparation for childbirth. In surgery, hypnotic suggestion can replace chemical anesthesia in some rare, if not exceptional cases. In all cases, it constitutes a psychological factor that promotes relaxation conducive to anesthesia and promotes post-operative awakening. It can, therefore, be used to prepare a patient for surgery and to reduce post-operative pain. In dental care, the intervention is greatly facilitated by analgesia's suggestions. Almost all attention is feasible in subjects capable of hypnotic analgesia. For the treatment of burns victims, the use of hypnosis can be significant. Two options for hypnotic treatment depend on the type of pain, chronic or acute. 1. Either learning, over several sessions, to reduce or avoid the pain. 2. An external method, built during a GP consultation or at the dentist's, or even extreme care in the hospital. Using hypnosis for chronic pain. For chronic pain patients, the goal of hypnosis treatment is to realize that they can respond to their pain, gain control, and relieve anxiety, and rearrange their lives by interpreting the nociceptive stimulus. If the hypnotic state's induction can occur in all patients, hypnotic suggestions regarding pain, memory, or other psychological functions are chosen based on the patient's speech. From the language of the patient and the description of their pain, the hypnotherapist has a large number of possible indications. With analgesia, you can keep sensations without pain. With analgesia, you create a kind of excitement, no loss of touch, no loss of pressure sensation, no loss of kinesthetic feeling, no damage other than the pain itself. Fractionation represents the gradual reduction in pain. You can continue to feel more comfortable with each exhalation, almost as if the discomfort is something that gradually fades away. The dissociation moves the mind away from the body or the painful part of the rest of the body. You leave your body here, your mind can travel, you're at home, elsewhere. Amnesia is about memories of past pain. The best way to deal with unpleasant feelings is to forget them, like when you go to the movies and get completely absorbed in the drama, you forget your headache. The distortion of time will shorten the time of the painful crises. Let your body appreciate these rest periods, which get longer and longer. The sensory replacement replaces the painful sensation with an always uncomfortable feeling, but more acceptable. The sensations you describe can change surprisingly. Instead of this burning sensation, your body may experience numbness. Persuasion, manipulation, mind control, and the subconscious mind. Persuasion in general, we tend to believe that persuasion, and thus the techniques of which it's composed, is used for manipulative, selfish reasons. However, this isn't entirely true. For example, sometimes it's required to seal a deal at work, have good, meaningful friendships, and get someone to change their habits to improve their lifestyle. It can be used for good, positive, productive reasons and have beneficial outcomes for many people. Persuasion can be seen as an art, a talent, and one you can develop with the right tips and knowledge. It's generally a force for good, a processual tool. It tends to advance the positions of everyone involved, both the persuader and the person being persuaded. Manipulation on the other hand, manipulation is very different from persuasion. It'll harm the person being subjected to it. Manipulation is used to trick, control, or coerce the other person into doing or thinking something they ordinarily wouldn't do or believe. Manipulating someone isn't quick and easy. It consists of closing the victim off mentally, socially, and physically from their family, friends, and the rest of the world. In other words, the individual becomes vulnerable, defenseless prey. With less and less contact with other people, and with their life now limited to being at the manipulator's beck and call, the victim doesn't have that many options to choose from. Their sense of self and self-worth and their capacity to think for themselves will be severely diminished. They'll feel trapped and entirely dependent on their manipulator. Anyone has the potential to manipulate, but most choose not to do so. A person who decides to carry out such acts will be prepared to set aside any qualms about hurting other people or using devious, ruthless means to get what they want. The manipulator's groundwork. A manipulator will initially carry out the following to hook and reel in their victim. Feign friendliness. The manipulator will pretend to be friendly and pleasant. They'll intentionally hide the darker sides to their character, such as aggressiveness. Getting to know the victim, the manipulator will be attentive and listen closely to what their victim tells them about themselves. They'll create a bond with their victim to get them to open up and reveal their vulnerabilities, which the manipulator will then exploit. The victim will probably find them charming and a good listener. Ways a manipulator controls their victim. The victim will often find themselves involved in a merry-go-round of emotions and positive reinforcement: praise, gift-giving, excessive apologizing, fake sympathy, fake smiles, etc. And negative reinforcement, removing them from a negative situation as a reward from the manipulator. The aim of using these tactics is to gain complete control over their victim. They'll eventually wear the victim down emotionally, psychologically, and physically. The victim will be left feeling vulnerable yet dependent on their manipulator, fearful, with low self-esteem and a lack of sense of self. Some other ways that the manipulator uses control are: creating a climate of fear or doubt, by partial or intermittent negative reinforcement. Punishment, usually verbal abuse or emotional blackmail. Traumatic one-trial learning, using intimidation to establish dominance. Even just one such instance can be so traumatic that the victim learns to avoid upsetting their manipulator. Lying. Refusal to admit they've done something wrong will usually place the blame on the victim. Rationalizing and minimizing their bad behavior. Selective attention or disattention according to their own agenda. Diversion evasion tactics in conversations: one to give straight answers will avoid giving answers. Covert intimidation, such as veiled threats which makes the victim feel vulnerable. Guilt tripping to make the victim feel sorry for their manipulator or feel guilty. Verbal shaming. Vilifying the victim, playing the victim. Blaming others, creating scapegoats. Pretending to be confused innocent if their victim confronts them about something. Controlled anger, feigning anger to get the victim to do what they want. Peer pressure bandwagon effect, convincing the victim to do something because many other people have done it before. The victims. What part of us makes us susceptible to the actions of master manipulators, that be material, psychological, or physical? Sometimes, it's purely done for kicks. Let's take a look at some possible motives. The desire to get what they want, no matter the personal cost to other people. The need for power and control over others. Boredom. A covert agenda, such as criminal activity. Underlying emotional issues, such as fear of commitment. Lack of self-control regarding antisocial behavior. Manipulation is a form of damage control. Psychopathy. In the workplace, sometimes used by people to instill fear or disharmony or climb up the ranks. Personality disorders. People with antisocial, borderline, and narcissistic personality disorders share traits that include exceptional abilities to deceive and manipulate. Lack of empathy and impulsivity are also common. Sufferers may use manipulative tactics to gain control, power, revenge, or material rewards. Histrionic personality disorder, despite having good social skills and usually functioning well in both their personal and professional lives, sufferers from this disorder tend to use their capabilities to manipulate others so that they're the center of attention. Machiavellianism, a person's tendency to lack empathy, sympathy, conventional morality, and being prone to deception and manipulation. Chapter 5. Influencing people using persuasion. Do you have a fantastic business idea that you need to pitch? Are you trying to get people to RSVP to your event, but to no avail? Or do you want to find a way to avoid getting scammed by dishonest salespeople? Dr. Robert Cialdini's research into the science of persuasion led him to identify 6 principles that guide human behavior. These principles can be used ethically to increase the chances of influencing someone through persuasion. Cialdini's principles of persuasion are: 1. Reciprocity. Give, and you shall receive is the thinking behind this principle. People feel obligated to give back to others if they've received a gift, a favor, an offer, or a service. Costco, for example, uses this tactic in their stores. They often give out free samples of certain food items, knowing that the customer will return the favor by either buying the product or returning to the store in the future. 2. Scarcity. People want more of what they can't have. Making something seem unique, rare, or limited increases its appeal tenfold. People don't want to feel like they're going to miss out on a product, service, or opportunity. 3. Authority. People will listen to those who they believe are credible, knowledgeable experts on something. The Milgram experiment studied obedience to authority figures. Participants were randomly selected to either be the learner or the teacher. In fact, the learner participants were Milgram's own colleagues pretending to be real participants. The learner had fake electrodes attached to their arms, while the teacher and researcher went into another room that contained a fake electric shock generator. The teacher was then to test the learner on a list of pair words that they'd been given to memorize. The teacher was told to administer an electric shock every time the learner made a mistake and increase the voltage with each error. Whenever the teacher refused to issue a shock, they were urged to do so by the researcher. In this instance, the teacher viewed the researcher as an authority figure. They were dressed in a lab coat, signifying their position as a qualified scientist. The results were shocking. The vast majority of participants continued to deliver electric shocks at the researcher's urging. The Milgram experiment proves the power of authority. We look up to people we perceive as more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more qualified than us. 4. Consistency. People like to be consistent with things they've committed to doing previously. Often, consistency is best achieved by getting people to put their commitment down in writing. 5. Likability. This is perhaps the most obvious. The more you like someone, the more likely it is that you'll do something for them. According to Cialdini, how much we like someone depends on 3 factors. Their similarity to us. How complementary they are towards us. How much they show cooperation with us towards mutual goals. Other ways you can up your likability factor. Be engaging. Be attentive. Keep in contact and follow up with people. 6. Consensus. If others are doing it, it must be good. Particularly if people are uncertain, they'll look around them to see what other people are doing. Tip jars rarely get money put into them if there isn't already some in there. So, restaurants and street buskers will make sure to already put some change into their jars before starting work. These principles can be applied by people in both professional and personal settings. Persuasion, if used ethically, can be for the mutual benefit of all involved. A brief introduction to mind control and marketing. As we've discovered, there's a science behind persuasion. In the 1980s, Dr. Robert Cialdini wrote the book Influence. The Psychology of Persuasion, outlining the principles guiding how people can influence or be influenced. Since then, it's become an essential book in the field of marketing and promotion. We could even stretch so far as to call marketing a form of mind control. All the marketer has to do is get someone to say yes, and then they've done their job. And the methods in which they can do this can all be learned here. Do the customer's thinking for them. People have already got enough on their plates that don't need anything else added to the pot. So, when you present something to them and say, think it over, I'll get back to you, chances are, they won't. Instead, be proactive, creative, and do pretty much everything for them except for signing on the dotted line. For example, if you want a testimonial from a customer, chances are they're going to be too busy to make it their priority. However, if you send them a couple of templates to choose from, which they can then personalize, they'll be more likely to complete that little task for you. They're going to say yes because you've done pretty much all the thinking for them. Start an avalanche, in other words, work as hard as you can to get your first yes, because once you've got it, you'll find that it has a snowball effect that'll eventually lead to an avalanche of yes. It's the opposite of the strategy many promoters use, working from the bottom up, but will be doubly effective in a shorter amount of time. One example of this would be getting an Instagram influencer to promote your product. It'll probably be a nightmare at first, trying to reach out to her and get her to become involved. But once she says yes, your product will be presented to thousands and thousands of potential customers. Ask for an inch, take a mile. Yes, you read that correctly. What this means is when you ask for something, don't ask for all of it up front. It offers both you and the customer more of a risk-free, relaxed commitment, which makes them more likely to give the initial yes. For example, if you want your customers to give testimonials, start off by asking them for just a 1 to 3 sentence piece of content. You can then start gradually asking for a bit more until you'll find that you're able to convince them to do a full-on webinar for you. Always have a real deadline. And this means real. No, I need your answer by the end of this week because I've got a lot of other clients who are interested. You're not fooling anyone with that line. When it sounds like you're bluffing, your customer is less likely to want to do business with you. Instead, make it clear that there's a real deadline and that the client needs to act sooner rather than later. For example, if promoting a special offer on your website, don't just put special offer, get it while stocks last. Right. Special offer until May 30th, act fast. Give more than you take. The ratio here shouldn't be 1:1, it should be 10:1. This goes for value, as well as for action. For example, to get one all-important customer testimonial, do 10 amazing acts of customer service. Generosity breeds generosity. Stand for something bigger than yourself. Make sure you're doing something which benefits more than just yourself or your business. Use your platform, your influence, to do good. Of course. This has the added benefit in that it draws people closer to you. Potential clients will want to get involved in helping you spread the word. For example, instead of just writing another blog post, take an issue close to your heart, and use your creativity and platform to spread awareness. Shamelessness. This means that you totally believe in what you're doing, and you'll stop at nothing to spread the word and get people involved. It involves tireless promotion and dogged determination. But it's what you've got to do because this is about bringing your vision, your dream, alive. So, there we have it. Using the skills of persuasion, mind control, influence. Whatever you want to call it can help you promote yourself or your business. And the best thing about it, there's no manipulation, there's no deceit. Just a little bit of hard work and perseverance on your side, and a satisfying payoff for everyone involved. Chapter 6. Mind control and our subconscious. Our subconscious knows the sources of our happiness, our conscious mind is often not capable of the same. We need our subconscious and conscious minds to work together to indeed find happiness and fulfillment. The subconscious is where our attitudes, emotions, and outlook on life are held, so we can use it to focus on what's essential by gaining control of it. We'll be able to rid ourselves of our fears, our negativity, and all the things holding us back from reaching our full potential. Often negative emotions like fear, loss of hope, loss of faith in people prevent us from focusing on the positives. They stop us from attaining happiness in our lives. Once we can control our subconscious mind, we can control our mind and ourselves. Mind control techniques. The following are some mind control techniques that you can practice to help improve your life. 1. Visualization. If we imagine or visualize we're achieving success, we can train our minds to work towards achieving it. It works for sports athletes, and it can work for you, too. 2. Meditation. Meditation is one of the oldest mind control techniques. It works by calming the mind and emptying it of all thoughts. In that space, peace and tranquility will enter. Meditation quiets that nagging voice in our head and gives the subconscious mind a voice instead. Scientific studies show that the mind's production of alpha waves peaks after meditation. These waves enrich inventive and positive thinking. Through meditation, the brain can focus on the present. 3. Positive self-talk. You can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. Negative self-talk becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't respect yourself, who else is going to? Talk to yourself like you'd a friend or a loved one, speak positively, use encouraging words, make yourself feel good. Your mind will feed on this and focus on what's achievable, and work toward that goal. 4. Self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis and the repetition of one mantra work like meditation. It frees your mind of unnecessary thought and allows you to focus. 5. Goals and continuous self-evaluation. Writing down our goals makes them more real. By continuously reviewing our goals and the progress we're making to achieve them, we'll be able to make the necessary changes. By assessing the progress made, you can keep your goal constant and stay positive. Mind management techniques are used effectively to cure various conditions, relieve acute pain, and reduce stress. They can significantly help in keeping your mind uncluttered, positive, and focused. The wonderful thing is, these techniques can be learned at any time in our lives and can be practiced daily in the comfort of our own homes. Most success stories relate in some way or another to the application of mind control techniques. As you've already read, by harnessing the power of the subconscious mind, we can directly influence the quality of our life. Nothing in life is more satisfying than relaxing in the freedom and awareness that you're using your mind to its full potential and that you're truly connected to your inner self. As we've seen, this isn't achieved by trickery. It's done using techniques to empty your mind of unnecessary, negative thoughts and replace them with grounded, positive ones. It's best to stick to a daily routine of practicing your preferred mode of mind control to ensure you achieve and maintain clarity and the right perspective. The realm of a person's subconscious mind is analogous to that of a giant sponge. It absorbs each and every experience we've ever encountered, good or bad. The subconscious supports whether we realize success in our life or not. While you work to implement your mind control techniques, you're ready to clear out the old, useless knowledge and replace it with a new state of mind. Think of it as your mental warehouse, where you can store all the tools and information to help you achieve your goals. It's a unique way to guarantee success with the freedom of mind that you've always wanted. You can be confident that the results won't only be exceptional, they'll be life-changing. Try it and reap the benefits. You've nothing to lose except negativity and everything to gain. Mind control techniques to be aware of. We've discussed how we can use mind control on ourselves to infinitely improve our own lives. However, others can use mind control techniques on us that can destroy our lives. The following techniques can be used by individuals in interpersonal settings such as a romantic relationship and in group settings, such as religious cults. We must all be aware of these mind control methods, as we run the risk of manipulation and abuse if they manage to take hold of us. Isolation. Even if physical isolation isn't possible, a manipulator can emotionally isolate their victim. Their aim is to limit the amount of outside information that their victim is receiving. They'll talk badly about the victim's friends and family, reduce access to social events, and may even control what the victim can read or watch on TV. Criticism. This will be aimed at everyone except the manipulator. They want to create an image of themselves as superior and dominant. It's an us versus them mentality. Social proof and peer pressure. This is usually done in group settings and could be used to brainwash newcomers. It works using the notion, if so and so does it, it must be right. It's particularly effective on people who are already quite vulnerable, unconfident, or without a clear sense of identity. Fear of alienation. None of us want to feel alone or isolated from the rest of society. This technique works when groups welcome newcomers with open arms, establishing quick and profound relationships with them. Even when the newcomer starts to have doubts, they won't vocalize or act on them for fear of being rejected by the group. Repetition. This is the repetition of a message over and over again. Simple yet effective, especially when combined with social proof. It works, albeit for a very different purpose, like the affirmations we give ourselves every day. Fatigue. When you're mentally and physically tired, you're less alert and more likely to give in to attempts at persuasion. Create a new identity. This is the manipulator's end goal. They want to strip you of your past life and your sense of self and identity. Essentially, they want to mold you into who they think you should be. Reverse psychology. Now let's take a look at another example of mind control that I'm sure we've all used at one point or another in our lives. It's commonly used by parents to get their kids to do something. The key is to not be too obvious while you're doing it. And importantly, you need to take an honest look at yourself and ask why you're doing it. It's, after all, a form of manipulation. Certainly not like what we've just read, but it's about influencing other people to get what you want. So, be mindful of your motives. Reverse psychology doesn't work on everyone, and that's because we can be divided up into two types of people, compliant or resistant. As you can guess, resistant people are the ones that reverse psychology struggles with. They're less likely to follow direction, they question things, they may be jaded or cynical, and perhaps quite dogmatic in their thinking. So, you may need to try harder or give up when you realize you're dealing with someone resistant. And remember, this technique should not at any point involve you trying to take away someone's free will from them. That's dark psychology stuff that you really don't want to be getting involved with. Now that you've looked at your motives and found them to be honorable, and you've determined whether or not you're likely to have any success, here are 4 steps to using reverse psychology. 1. Use cloaking. This means disguising what you're trying to do. Make it seem like you don't really care about the outcome. 2. Reframe the situation. This is to get someone who was previously resistant to doing something to do it now. You're trying to get them motivated by changing the way they look at the situation. 3. Introduce a third party. Casually mention that another person thinks that the task can't be done either. This ups the challenge and motivates the person to do it themselves to prove the other person wrong. 4. Give pushback. When the other person seems to be giving in, be slightly argumentative. This will reinforce in their mind that they should do it and that it was their own idea all along. The ability of our thoughts to influence our reality is incredible. Their power is best summed up thus, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. In the end, our thoughts confirm our actions. It's inevitable. No one goes out and cheats on their spouse if those thoughts aren't already somewhere in their mind. No one commits a serious crime on a whim. There's first an inspiration before any action. This is to our advantage. If we learn to focus our thoughts on success, productivity, goals, happiness, etc., we're more likely to achieve them. Our character, and ultimately our destiny, comes down to how we learn to focus our thoughts. Good ideas will eventually lead to good things. Unhealthy thoughts will lead to bad things. Sow the seeds of positive thinking now, and you can reap the harvest of success later. Action steps. 1. Check your thoughts. Wherever you are, be mindful of what you're thinking. It takes effort to focus on particular thoughts that help us to achieve our goals. Sometimes it's so much easier to just zone out. The temptation to go on Facebook or watch TV is always there because it takes minimal effort. However, make the difference in your thinking if you have goals, or people you want to help, a hobby you want to take up, or if you want to learn more about yourself. 2. Use your thoughts to find 3 areas in your life where you want to improve. Write them down so that they become goals instead of desires. 3. Check on your progress each day, look back at your list and see what you're doing to achieve your goals and what you could do better. 4. If you need help, find someone you trust, or a group of like-minded individuals, to support you towards your goal. 5. Keep your thoughts positive, and you'll strengthen them by keeping them in your mind. Soon you'll find that this mindfulness and positivity will affect your actions, habits, and your journey. Remember to control your thoughts, they're what determine your destination. Role of neuroscience in the reduction of anxiety. Anxiety disorders are quite widespread in today's fast-paced, hectic society, where everyone has access to information all the time, whether positive or negative. Anxiety is an umbrella term, meaning it covers many different psychiatric conditions. For a layperson, an anxiety disorder can be interpreted as panic and fear that randomly hits a patient when they find themselves in stressful situations. Anxiety is defined as a diffuse, vague, very unpleasant, and uncomfortable feeling a patient feels under certain circumstances. These situations can be real or a product of the patient's imagination. There are different types of anxiety disorders, such as 1. Generalized anxiety disorder, 2. Anxiety disorder, 3. Social anxiety disorder, 4. Obsessive compulsive disorder, 5. Post-traumatic stress disorder. The most common treatment for anxiety disorder is the use of tranquilizers. However, this solution is problematic. One reason for this is that its use isn't recommended for long-term use, and it doesn't get to the root cause of what's causing the sufferer's anxiety. Tranquilizers result in excessive sleep, clinomania, an extreme desire to stay in bed, and numb the patient's mind and emotions. Since tranquilizers are so successful in reducing anxiety, they're also often misused. Not to forget, they also have a lot of intense withdrawal symptoms, such as sweating, trembling hands, fast heartbeat, insomnia, and so on, that start within 24 hours of taking the last dose. The patient's body and mind get used to it, and if they stop, they can't live a comfortable life. Sedatives become an addiction. For these reasons, psychologists and psychiatrists should turn to neuroscience to treat or reduce anxiety disorders. Neuroscience is essentially the study of how the functions of the nervous system develop. Neuroscientists focus on a wide range of topics, from neurotransmitter specialization to specific behaviors and many different psychiatric disorders. Anxiety disorder is one of the mental illnesses, and many studies have been done by correlating a patient's anxiety with how their nervous system responds. Therefore, these scientists and researchers have found several ways to treat and reduce stress by focusing more on the nerves. In technical terms, patients with an anxiety disorder are known to have a hyperactive amygdala, which is primarily known as the anxiety center. They sometimes even have a slightly larger amygdala. It was created to cope with more anxiety and fear, be it a generalized anxiety disorder or a social anxiety disorder, or even irrational phobias, as mentioned earlier. However, neuroscience and the study of our brain, spinal cord, and nervous system suggest that you can alter these emotions and feel healthy by controlling your fears and worries. The fantastic thing about the human brain, the nervous system's central organ, is that it's made to continually rewire itself to learn, grow, and heal after experiencing trauma. This is known as neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself throughout its life by forming new neural connections. Because of this trait, people are continually changing as they age. Scientists believe that after a certain age, especially during childhood, the brain locks itself in a particular state. But as times go on, we can better study the brain using the non-invasive imaging technologies we've invented, such as the fMRI and PET scan. We can see how our brain changes itself, depending on how we use it. Neuroscientists study these changes and what their applications are. This neuroplasticity feature can help people with anxiety disorders become less anxious and control their anxiety by rewiring their brains. Neuroscience states that forcing yourself to change the way you think can change your brain's structure, along with the different types of chemicals it pumps out. To use this distinguishing feature of the mind to fight anxiety, we must first understand the 3 principles of fear. 1. The first principle we need to understand is our perspective on fear. Most of us assume that fear is bad. Anxiety may be uncomfortable, but it's not always bad. Some fear is healthy and essential to everyday life because it has a function, to motivate us to avoid real danger. Anxiety is experienced in several ways. There's normal adaptive anxiety, which helps you function daily, be wary of what's wrong and what's right. Your gut feeling enables you to understand when something is off. Then there's the fear you feel from the pressure of your hectic routine or the stress of everyday life. 2. The second principle is to understand the disordered type of fear. It's the fear required by the work of neuroscience because it interferes with a person's daily functioning, it assumes that simple things are a real danger, and it obscures any judgment. It makes it difficult for us to go to work or school or to perform simple tasks. It prevents us from enjoying the little life we have. Contrary to popular belief, anxiety isn't just a disorder if it's severe. It's disordered when A. You feel like you're in danger, even though you may be perfectly safe, or B. When your fear disturbs your ability to function when it takes over your life. 3. The third principle we need to understand is that avoiding what causes our fear allows our fear to torment and grow. However, you can choose to avoid it, be it by distracting yourself with social media, by drinking, by blaming others, by always staying in bed, etc. All these coping mechanisms only increase the fear you feel and shrink your world. This increase in anxiety levels is due to the anxiety cycle. The anxiety cycle is a vicious trap. Essentially, when you're afraid of something, your brain triggers physical symptoms to help you get out of that situation. It's the feeling of fear. When you escape the case in the short term, it gives a lot of relief. But in the long run, because you've got that little relief from escaping it, your brain will increase the physical symptoms and worries next time, making you extra aware, forcing you to avoid the situation altogether. Over time, this feeling gets worse, like a cycle, as your brain rewires itself to prevent that situation more and more. You miss out on life because you don't go out, meet new people, or enter into relationships. If we agree that our cause of the fear is generally a safe situation, we can then assume that embracing our feelings and fear without running away won't kill us. To prevent our anxiety from getting out of hand, we can intervene and force ourselves with our actions or thoughts. With our actions, we force ourselves to remain in the situation that worries us, and since no harm will come to us, our brain thinks it's okay and will stay in such a case and not avoid it. It'll also help us strengthen our emotional muscles, which means we can feel emotions and sensations that can make us uncomfortable without continually escaping from them, thus making us feel better. This force establishes new neural pathways in your brain, making you less and less anxious over time. If actions become too challenging to perform, you can also interfere with your thoughts, which means thinking about the harmless situation that makes you anxious and telling yourself not to worry about anything. However, as with all ideas, it can get very complicated. It's always better to consider a situation as harmless before entering into it, rather than during or after. Therefore, it's still better to use your actions to combat anxiety. But if that gets too hard to enforce, you can take the following steps to make it easier on yourself. 1. Create an exposure hierarchy. Break down everything that scares you into several steps and boldly start facing the one you can most easily follow. It's important to take baby steps because if you jump in too quickly, you'll panic, the anxiety will further increase, and your anxiety level will rise. 2. Change your rules. People assume that courage is the absence of fear when, in fact, It just realizes that some things are more important than avoiding what scares you. It's the will to let yourself do something, even if it can make you uncomfortable or scared. We must make sure that we don't allow ourselves to determine how we do things. For this, we must remain with our fear for a specific time, at least until it subsides. 3. Face your fears. This has been said before. However, it's essential to just do things sometimes, no matter how afraid we are of them. It's okay to feel anxious as long as you don't let it control you. It's all about willingness and acceptance. By following these steps, you rewire your brain and new nerves, causing your anxiety disorder to decrease over time as your brain develops and realizes that something we develop as the cause of your irrational fear is nothing to worry about. People with anxiety tend to actively resist relaxation, despite how good it's for a person's body and soul, and choose to worry. So, they should force themselves to relax and worry less about something harmless. Understandably, this is a straightforward way to use neuroscience studies to treat such conditions. However, it's much more challenging to implement them. Therefore, neuroscience suggests that there are also some songs and sounds you can listen to reduce your anxiety disorder. Indigenous cultures use music to improve their well-being, mental stability, and even their health. Most retreats and spas play sounds of nature to make their clients more relaxed and reduce their anxiety levels. One study was developed to find out whether or not music is something that helps reduce anxiety or not. Participants were told to solve complicated puzzles while listening to different songs. The participants had sensors connected to them to measure their brain activity and their physiological symptoms, such as heart rate, blood pressure, and even breathing, to conclude how anxiety levels are affected by music. Of all the songs they heard, Marconi Union's Weightless was found to reduce participants' anxiety levels by 65%. Funnily enough, this had been the aim when the song had been made. When this song was composed, Marconi Union worked with many sound therapists to carefully arrange all rhythms, harmonies, and bass levels to help slow and reduce the heart rate and blood pressure of those who listened to the song. Likewise, Electra by Airstream and Watermark by Enya do a similar job. In short, it's will and determination that will help you overcome what makes you anxious and help you to conquer your anxiety.